Let's talk about lenses in our 13.2 section. So last section, we talked about mirrors, right? This section, we're gonna talk about lenses. So it's gonna be a little bit different. So just make sure that you're not getting confused between the characteristics of a mirror and its reflection and the images that it creates. And then what lenses are and what the reflections are with lenses and the image that lenses create. Okay. So what exactly is a lens? A lens is a transparent material that has at least one curved surface. So lenses are what we have in our eyes naturally, what we have in glasses, which we refer to as corrective lenses. And then lenses also cause light rays to bend or refract, because remember, refracting means bending of the light, as the rays pass through the lenses. So remember, in a mirror, when you have a light ray, it's going to be reflected off of the mirror. But when you have a lens, it's going to go through the lens and create some kind of image. So the two lenses we're going to talk about is concave and convex. This is similar to the two types of mirrors that we talked about, concave, convex, and then the other mirror we talked about was a plane mirror. But this is, in lenses, there are no plane lenses. It's just going to be concave and convex. Okay, so a convex lens is going to be thicker in the middle than around the edges, and it's also going to have an optical axis that's going to be perpendicular to the center, so perpendicular to the center of the lens, okay? And the center is where it's thickest. So here I have an example of my convex lens, and you can see that it is definitely thicker in the middle. And my optical axis is going to go perpendicular and hit right in the middle of the lens. So remember, perpendicular looks like this. So this would be my purple would be my optical lens, and then my white would be my mirror, and it's going perpendicular. And it's going to be more thicker in the center, which is right here, versus the edges, which is right there. When light comes in to hit the lens, it's going to come in a parallel motion. So if you look at my optical axis that I have dotted line right in the middle, it's going perpendicular to the center. You can also see that my light is going to come in at a parallel motion in reference to my optical axis. So these are all parallel. But when they come out of the lens, you can see that they're going to be refracted. So these light rays are bent and they're meeting at a focal point. So remember, when we talked about a mirror, the focal point was in front of the mirror because the mirror is reflecting the light. But in the lens, it's going through the actual lens, okay? So you see, once again, I'm going to tell you, light is coming in at a parallel motion to the optical lens, and then it's going to be bent or refracted once it goes through the lens right at the focal point. Okay, now remember the focal point is the distance from the focal point to the lens, right, or the mirror. So when we talk about the focal length of a lens, it depends on the shape of the lens. So if the shape of the lens is concave or convex, and it's also going to depend on how, excuse me, how much the lens is curved. Is it more curved? Is it less curved? And so I kind of just broke it down into simple terms. So I said the flatter side, which means the less curved a convex lens is, that means light rays are going to be less bent and you're going to have a longer focal length. So I'm going to say it again. The less curved a convex lens is, you're going to have less light rays that are, you're going to have light rays that are going to be less bent, and therefore they're going to have a longer focal length, okay? So less curved convex lens equals less bent of a light ray equals longer focal length. When you form images with a convex lens, it's going to depend on where the object is regarding the focal point from the lens. So I'm going to show you a diagram that's going to explain this, but basically, we're going to have 3 different scenarios that I'm going to show you. And in each of those scenarios, I'm going to have the object, okay? And it's going to be located in different distances from the lens. and you're going to see how many distances it is going to be regarding the focal length. So one scenario will have a object that's 2 focal lengths away from the lens. Another one will have 1 focal length away from the lens. And then you're going to see and compare how the image that is being formed through the lens depends on where the object is in the focal length. So let's get started. In scenario A, we are going to say that if an object is more than 2 focal lengths away, then this is going to be true, okay? So bear with me as I go through this. So here I have my object right here. So this is my object, my candle. And then I have my lens right here. This is my convex lens. Remember, concave bends in like you would be going into a cave. Convex protrudes out. So this is my convex lens, and I have my object. I'm gonna have one ray of light coming out from the flame, and it's gonna come out, it's gonna hit the lens, and it's gonna go through, and once it goes through the lens, it's going to be refracted. It's going to be bent. Now, I have another ray, ray B. It's gonna come out of the flame, it's gonna go through the lens, and it's gonna come out and be refracted as well in a way when it goes through the lens. Now, the place where these two are combining, which is right here, you can see that an image is not being made right where they combine, but right a little bit right above it where the optical axis is. So this is the optical axis. And you can see my image is right here, okay? So what does the image look like? First of all, the image is upside down, and it looks a lot smaller than the actual object, okay? So this is going to be true in this scenario. So anytime you see an object that is more than 2 focal lengths, so here I have my focal point, okay? So this is my actual focal length, right? When I look at my object, I can see that it is 1 focal length, 2 focal length outside of or distanced away from the lens. So it's actually more than 2 focal lengths away from the lens. So in this scenario, like I said, an object, which is right here, my candle, right here, that is more than 2 focal lengths, so 1 focal length, 2 focal length away from the lens, is going to have this kind of image. And here I have a description of what the image is. The image would be real. It's going to be reduced, which means it's smaller, and it's going to be upside down. Okay, and that's what we get in this image. So let's go to scenario B. Okay, so in scenario B, we have an object that is going to move a little bit closer to the lens, and we're going to see how the image actually becomes larger. So again, I have my focal point here, okay? So this is my focal length. Remember, focal length is the distance that the lens is from the focal point. So I have 1 focal length here and 2 focal length here. Now you can see that the object, which is right here, my candle, has moved in a little bit closer to the lens so that now it's within 2 focal lengths from the lens. And we're gonna see how one ray that's coming out from the candle is gonna hit the lens, and it's gonna be refracted or bent through the focal point. I have another ray that's gonna be reflected, or not reflected, it's gonna go towards the lens and go through it. And it's gonna go and go through the lens, okay? Now, we see that the object, or the image, that's being made is a lot bigger, still upside down, than the object, okay? So this is my object, and then this is my image right here. So in this scenario, anytime you have an object that moves closer to the lens, the image is going to get larger, okay? In this scenario. So in this scenario, the image is real, it's enlarged, has become a lot bigger than the actual object, and it's upside down. In scenario C, we see that when an object is less than 1 focal length from the lens, the image is going to become enlarged, and upright, okay? So now, here is my object. This is my object right here. This candle is my object, all right? This candle, the bigger one, is my image. So let's see how this works. So I have my lens right here. This is my lens, okay? Now, I have light rays coming out of this candle, and it's going to go through the lens, through the focal point. But my object is within one focal length of the lens. So it's actually going to create this imaginary line, virtual rays, that's going to be behind this object as these rays are being reflected. Not reflected, it's going through the actual lens. So when this happens, you have these virtual rays that are being created, and you can see that the image is actually virtual, right? So when you have virtual rays, you're typically going to have a virtual image. So let's describe the image. The image is virtual because the light rays from the object are not converging after they pass through the lens. So when you have light that is traveling from an object through the lens and they converge, you're going to typically get a real image, and it's typically going to be upside down, okay? But when you have an object that's within one focal length of the convex lens, you're going to have light rays that are going to go through the lens that are not going to converge, and they're going to create a virtual image because there's going to be virtual rays. And so you can clearly see that this image right here is a lot bigger, it's upright, and it's virtual. Okay, so here's an example. If I had a magnifying glass, right? So here's my magnifying glass. We'll give it a little thing, right? And I'm looking at, say, an ant, all right? This magnifying glass is made out of a convex lens, right? So it's a little bit bent outward. Now, if I hold my magnifying glass within a good distance from, say, an ant that I'm looking at, it's gonna kind of look like an ant, like it's gonna be pretty small still. But the more I move the magnifying glass closer to the ant, the more that ant is going to be magnified, especially when I'm within one focal length from that ant, which is my object, okay? So the closer that I am to that ant with my magnifying glass, the more it's gonna be magnified. All right, same thing when you're reading. A lot of people have to keep that magnifying glass pretty close to the words on the page because it will magnify it more because it's within that focal length. Let's talk about concave lens. So remember, concave means that I am looking, it's going inward, like a cave, like you would walk into a cave. So a concave lens is a lens that is thinner in the middle and thicker on the edges, okay? So you can see my image here. I have a concave lens, and it is definitely thicker on the edges and thinner in the middle. I also have an optical axis that is going through the middle. I'm hitting it perpendicularly to the center, and I have light rays that are coming in. So my light rays are coming in parallel to the optical axis. But notice that when they go through the lens, they're actually separating and going away from the optical axis. They are not actually meeting at a focal point, okay? They're going away from it. So, concave lens, they are not meeting at a focal point, okay? Once they go through the lens, so that means there is no real image being formed. But concave lenses, they can form virtual images. So though they can't form real images, they can form virtual images. And virtual images, they're always going to be, so let's describe virtual images. They're always going to be upright. They're going to be smaller than the actual object. Okay, so concave and convex images, they're always going to produce same type of images, all right? So the concave lens is going to use some eyeglasses. So ways that you can use concave lenses is that you can have concave lenses in eyeglasses, in microscopes, and you can actually combine different types of lenses with the concave lenses to form some type of instrument for whatever purpose it is that you need. There is a really awesome table on page 410, table 2 in your textbook that I really want you guys to copy into your notes. So if you want to pause the video right here, copy into your notes, and then proceed, that would be awesome. It's going to really break down these types of lenses and what the images they form, what they look like, and so on and so forth. So it will kind of help you really understand the differences. Okay, eyesight and lenses. The structure of your eye is going to help you have the ability to focus on literally the words that you're reading on this video, or the words in your textbook or in your notes. It's also going to help you focus on the objects around you. So how does that work? So the way that it's going to work is that you have lenses in your eye, okay? And through the different parts of your eye, they're going to work together to form an image. So the first thing is that you're going to have light that's going to enter into the cornea of your eye. So let's define some of these terms. First, the cornea is the transparent material or kind of covering that is over your eyeball. Okay, so once the light is going to go through your cornea, the rays are going to converge as they are bent as soon as they pass through, and they're going to form an image on your retina. So if you look at page 410 and you look at figure 12, this is an awesome image that is going to really help you understand as I go through this stuff. So please have your textbook open, page 411, figure 12, and it will help you really understand what I'm explaining. Okay, so you can see the cornea is right here on this image. It's this transparent material, like this whiter part on the outside of your eyeball. And your light is going to travel through your cornea, then it's going to go through your pupil. Now your pupil is that dark black that you see right here, okay? This is a dark black covering that you see right here. And then it's going to travel through your lens, which is this thing right here. And then it's going to hit your retina. Remember that we talked about the retina, which has, let me use a different color. Your retina is the one that has the cones and rods on it, and that's where it's pretty much like, think of it, the screen in your eyeball. That's where the image is going to be displayed. Okay, so let's go through some terms. The first term is your cornea. Like I said, it's a clear, transparent material that covers your eye. You have the pupil, which is the opening behind the cornea. That's that dark black spot, or not spot, but dark black thing that you have in your eye. Then you have your lens. Now your lens are actually flexible, convex lens. Remember, they kind of curve out a little bit. And it's going to help focus the light rays that you see from an image, and it's going to form it on, or light rays that you see from an object, and it's going to help form that image on your retina. Retina is the inner lining of your eye. This is the ones that have your rods and cones that we talked about. And it's going to help convert the light image that you're receiving from an object into electrical signals. Those electrical signals are then going to travel by your optic nerve into your brain. Your brain will then decipher and say, oh, I see a laptop. Oh, I see a dog. Oh, I see a human being. So again, here you can see that you have the cornea right here, the clear transparent material like on the outside right here, this part. Then you have your pupil, which is the black thing in the middle. Then you have your lens. Then you have your retina, which is kind of this yellow part of the back of your eyeball. And then you have your optic nerve, which is going to run to your brain. Okay? And then it's at your brain that you're going to decipher all of this stuff. Okay. So to see an image clearly, it has to be focused clearly and sharply on the retina. If there is some kind of disturbance and how the image is formed on your retina, it's going to look blurry and it's not going to be clear. So the retina is purposely fixed at a distance at a specific distance from your lens. So notice how the retina is not close to your lens, but there's actually a good amount of distance between your lens, which is in the front of your eye, your retina, which is in the back of your eye, and that's for a purpose. So there are two things that depend on how you're going to see an image that's going to be formed on your retina. So location of an image formed by your convex lens depends on 1, the focal length of the lens, and then 2, the location of the object. So where that object is it closer to you? Is it further than you? So for an image to be formed on the retina, the focal length of the lens needs to be able to change as distance of the object changes. So the focal length of your lens, right, has to be able to change as you get closer or further away from the object. So the cool thing is your lens in your eye is actually flexible. And how this is flexible is that there are actually muscles that are attached to your lens that can change the shape of the lens and change the focal length of the lens in accordance with how far or near that object you are looking at is. So this is going to help you see, oh, my wall is this distance from me versus I don't know how far it is. I can't tell if it's closer or further away. So when you're focusing on an object that is far from your eye, the muscles around your lens are going to relax. So if an object is far from your eye, the muscles around your lens are going to relax, and this is going to help your lens go into a less of a convex shape. Okay? But when you're focusing on a nearby object, the muscles are going to make your lens more curved. So therefore, your focal length decreases and you're able to take in that object that is closer to you. Okay, so we're going to talk about some vision problems. So astigmatism, you probably heard whether you went to, an eye doctor, and they're saying, oh, you have some astigmatism in your eye. Basically what they're saying is that the way that your cornea is shaped is uneven. So usually if you look at my diagram here, if this is your eyeball, this is your cornea, okay? So usually it will be in this nice like circular shape, but sometimes when you have astigmatism, it's gonna be in this weird oval shape, okay? And this weird oval shape is going to cause you to have blurry vision, depending, when you're looking at an object. And this is when you're going to need a corrective lens, like glasses, which is going to help kind of balance out that uneven curve of your cornea. So the corrective lenses is also going to have an uneven curve to kind of cancel out the uneven curve in your eye. Okay, so they're both going to have uneven curve, but the uneven curve in your corrective lenses, like your glasses, is going to cancel out the uneven curve in your cornea. Now, you probably heard farsightedness. Usually when people think of farsightedness, it means that, at least when I was little, I thought if you had farsightedness, you couldn't see far. But if you have farsightedness, or if you are farsighted, that means you can see distant objects clearly, okay? So, this means that if you can see distant objects clearly, that means you can't see closer objects clearly. So closer objects to you are going to be more blurry than the ones that are further away. So why does this happen? So light rays that are from near objects do not converge enough once they pass through the cornea, okay? And so your lens is not able to form that sharp image on the retina. So when you have glasses that are able to correct this issue of not being able to see close objects, you're going to have a convex lens that can bend the light rays so that they are less spread out before they enter the eye. Please look at figure 413 on page 413, figure 14, to help you understand this. Farsightedness is also due to age. So people who are a lot older can have more troubles seeing closer objects. So that's why when you get a little bit older, people use like reading glasses because they can't really see clearly the words that are right in front of them. And then when you get older, the muscles around your eye are still going to try to contract and shape your lens, but your lens in itself is going to become more rigid and stiff, and it's not going to be able to make the shapes that your muscles are trying to make, so you can focus on close objects. So here's an example. I would highly suggest that you look at figure 14 on page 413 because my drawing does not do it justice. But if I have my eyeball on the left side and I have light rays coming in, what's going to happen is in farsightedness, the light rays from a close object, they're actually not meeting. So if you can see, if I take this away, they're not meeting close together. They're not converging. So the image that's being portrayed on my retina is not going to be clear because those light rays are not coming together. okay? But if I have a corrective lens, like my handy dandy convex lens right here, like an eyeglass, what it's gonna do is that the convex lens is gonna allow the light rays that are coming in to converge. So they're gonna come together. So you can see that they're kind of coming together a little bit right here before that they hit my actual eyes. And so this is gonna help the light rays to come together and actually form an image on my retina. So you can see how here the lens are actually helping the waves to come in a little bit closer together than here when they're a little bit still spread apart. Nearsightedness. This is when you can only see objects that are nearby. So farther away objects are blurry. So your cornea and your lens are going to form a sharp image of the object that is far away before it reaches the retina. I'll show you a picture of how this looks like. But basically the way that you correct it is with concave lenses, which are lenses that cave in. And this is going to allow the light rays that are coming in to diverge, which means go apart a little bit before they enter the eye. And the light rays that are coming from these distant objects, they can be focused into the eye to make the sharp image on the retina and not in front of it. So when you don't have glasses to correct nearsightedness, basically what's happening is you're forming an image not on the retina, but a little bit in front of the retina. So it's blurry. But when you have these corrective lenses, which are the glasses that have concave lenses, they are going to form an image on the retina because of the glasses that you have on. So let's look at this image. On the left, you can see that I have light rays that are coming from, say, a distant object. And you can see that they are meeting up right in front of the retina. And remember, the only way you can see an object clearly is if it's on the retina, but they're not meeting up on the retina, they're meeting in front of the retina, therefore it's blurry. So I'm gonna pull in wear my handy dandy concave lenses, and what they're gonna do is they are going to help make the light rays spread out a little bit more. As you can see right here, they're spread out a little bit more before they even enter the eye, so that when they do enter the eye, they can come together a little bit further back and actually hit the retina at one point to make that sharp image. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. Please check out the figures that are in your textbook. It will help so much to understand all of this diagrams and all of these terms.